Fabric soft leaves clothes soft and fluffy, and its fresh scent is a delight. Okay. Sounds like premises, honestly. Well, I guess you could try to prove that. But anyways, we conducted a test. Maybe they're going to try to prove it. We conducted a test using over 100 consumers to prove Fabric Soft is best. Is best. That's a really strong claim. Each consumer, that's also strong. Each means every. Every consumer was given one towel washed with Fabric Soft and one towel washed without it. Okay, hold on. 99% of the consumers preferred the Fabric Soft towel. So Fabric Soft is the most effective fabric softener available. All right. So at first I thought the conclusion was, well, I think it might be. I think the conclusion, the ultimate conclusion that they're trying to prove is that Fabric Soft is the best. They did this by comparing a Fabric Soft towel to a towel that doesn't have Fabric Soft. You need to compare it to other fabric softeners. Like, of course, people are gonna like the towel with Fabric Soft versus a towel that has nothing. So, Fabric Soft is the most effective fabric softener available. That actually sounds like the intermediate conclusion. So basically what happened is we're trying, we conducted a test using over 100 consumers to prove Fabric Soft is best. Well, either the main conclusion is that Fabric Soft is the best. And one of the reasons it is the best is that it is the most effective fabric softener available. And so then the last sentence would be an intermediate conclusion. Or the last sentence is an intermediate conclusion, and the second sentence is just providing us context, right? Like to explain the context in which they presented or conducted this test. Either way, it doesn't matter, because when you're looking at arguments and you're trying to figure out what's wrong with them, let's break this down. We basically have, let's say we have premise. Let's say that the second sentence, the one about best, is the main conclusion. And then we have some more premises about the study. So we have more premises. And then ultimately those premises lead to an intermediate conclusion or possibly the main conclusion. If this supports this, and this, let's see here, this supports this, right? The premises about the study, about the comparison, were used to support the last sentence, which is what I'm going to say right now is the intermediate conclusion. So Fabric Soft is the most effective thing, yada yada. Well then the fact that it's the most effective could help prove, I mean it doesn't, but it could be used to try to prove the idea that it's the best. Whether or not this is ultimately the main conclusion or this is the main conclusion, it doesn't matter because the problem occurred right here. Problems can occur anywhere between premises and intermediate conclusions or between intermediate conclusions and main conclusions. In other words, whenever you try to use some claim to support another claim, whether that claim is the intermediate conclusion or the main conclusion, you can have a problem. And if you fail to go from one to the other, if you fail to prove your intermediate conclusion on the basis of this premise, if this premise fails to show that this has to be true, or this fails to show that that has to be true, then you have a problem. And we have a big problem right here. So whether they're thinking of this as the main conclusion or that is the main conclusion, I don't care, because right here I'm already like angry, right? Like you compared Fabric Soft to nothing, and now you're saying, oh, it must be the most effective. That's a horrible test because you need to compare it to other things. So my guess is that this is like the biggest gap in the argument, right? This is the biggest disconnect. We also have a disconnect here. Just because you're the most effective fabric softener doesn't mean you're the best, right? It could be that to become the best, you have to not only be effective but cheap. Like you could have the most effective fabric softener, but it costs $1,000, and so people are like, well, it certainly is effective, but it's not the best, because in my mind, best incorporates more considerations than just effectiveness. So there's also a disconnect here, right? So going from this premise to this intermediate conclusion is problematic, and going from here to here is problematic. So we could say, hey, there's two flaws in this argument. At least two. There's usually more than that. People make flaws all the time. They make all sorts of mistakes. But this one is so much bigger than this one that my guess is that this is what we really want to focus on. So if you misidentified, or if I'm currently misidentifying, well, if you misidentified this as the main conclusion, you'd still be fine, because you'd probably go, oh, premise to main conclusion, there was a problem here, therefore let me go look for this flaw, and you'd probably be right, because this flaw is a lot worse than this flaw. Now maybe I'm wrong, maybe the LSAT is thinking of this as the main conclusion, but like I said, it doesn't matter, because either way, we see this problem right here. Okay, anyways, the reasoning is most vulnerable to criticism. Most vulnerable to criticism means you're looking at a flaw question, so the correct answers, or all the answers, are going to try to describe that flaw. We can ask ourselves, is this happening? Is this describing exactly what's happening? And is this a problem? So when we answer yes to both of those questions, then we have the right answer. Answer choice A. Any of the consumers tested... Oh, wait, hold on, sorry. The argument fails to consider whether any of the consumers tested are allergic to fabric softeners. Yeah, they did fail to consider that possibility. I'm not sure how that's really a problem. If any of them were allergic, then that would suck to be part of this test. But at the end of the day, it's still true that 99% of the consumers preferred the fabric soft towel. So either they're allergic and they still like it, or the 1% were the ones who were allergic. But still, the vast majority of people preferred it, so I don't think it matters. B, fabric soft is more or less harmful to the environment than other fabric softeners. They failed to consider whether it is more or less harmful. That's a potential problem. That actually taps into this right here, right? If you say, hey, it's the most effective, but it turns out to be really damaging to the environment, then you might not come to the conclusion that it's the best. So I would keep that one open. Answer choice C, fabric soft is much cheaper or more expensive. That's that's the exact same thing, right? Answer choices B and C tap into this idea that if you're gonna say it's the best, you have to consider other things than just how effective it is. But they're like, which is more important, harm to the environment or cost? I have no idea. Answer choices B and C seem like twins to me. They seem exactly the same. So my guess is that they're both wrong. And also keep in mind, they're going after the second flaw, which in this argument didn't seem to be as serious of a flaw as this one, right? You're gonna say it's more effective than other fabric softeners, but you didn't even include them in your study. That's just like mind-numbingly dumb. The consumers tested find the benefits of using fabric softeners worth the expense. Okay, I'm glad they find it worthwhile. That doesn't help or hurt the argument, because if the consumers find the benefits of using fabric softeners worth the expense. Oh, I guess this is trying to say that the consumers tested were unrepresentative, right? The ones who were tested were the ones who are willing to spend money on fabric softeners. That's kind of interesting, actually. Well, even so. It doesn't really talk about the differences between fabric soft and other fabric softeners. So this would probably be true about anyone who's going out to buy fabric softeners. So the real issue is, okay, once you've decided to go buy them, which one do you think is the most effective, fabric soft or something else? This doesn't make a distinction between any of the fabric softeners, it just makes a distinction between fabric softeners generally and not having fabric softeners at all. E, the consumers tested had the opportunity to evaluate fabric softeners other than fabric soft. This is what we've been saying from the beginning. This is that flaw that is so much more serious than this flaw. So I would say answer choices B and C are definitely wrong. E is correct. If E didn't exist, then yeah, maybe B or C would be correct. But deciding between those two, I have no idea how I would evaluate that. So for one of those to be correct, we really need to have E be gone and have one of B or C be gone, because there's just no way to decide between both of them. Anyways, E is correct.